Lakurawa terrorist group will soon be a thing of the past. Well, that's according to Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, speaking after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa earlier today. Oluyede confirmed the Nigerian and Nigerian forces are intensifying a joint military offensive along the border to target the group responsible for cross-border attacks. He emphasizes that this joint effort would significantly weaken the group and help restore security to the region. The Army chief, while highlighting recent visits to military formations in the northeast and northwest regions, outlined plans to tackle Nigeria's security challenges differently while promising to deliver better results. Oluyede expressed confidence that with President Tinubu's continued support, the military would make significant progress in improving national security.
I'm here to reassure Mr. President that I will do my best to make Nigeria better in terms of security, and that I'm going to explore doing things maybe in a different way. Probably I'll get some other results that will make Nigeria better. That's my major aim of coming here. And to seek its support, which he's been doing over the years, and I expect he will support us to do better. I actually visited two formations. That's the one in the Northwest, 8th Division, and the Theatre of Operations in the Northeast. Well, basically, I was there to speak with my officers and soldiers and to make them realize that there's need for us to end all these forms of insecurity in Nigeria. And I made it bold to tell them that I'm going to do things differently, and I expect better results. We had to get in touch with them because, it affects them too. And that's why we both need to come on board to tackle them. We are eating them hard on this, at this end, that's Nigerian end. So we expect them, because what is expected is that once we eat them hard at this end, they will flee to Niger Republic. So now that the Niger Republic is coming on board, that means very soon Lakurawa will be a thing of the past.
All right, let's have a chat with Saliu Dantata, who's a security analyst. Good evening and thanks for joining us. We've heard the Chief of Army Staff saying, look, Lakurawa terrorists will soon be a thing of the past. He says we're hitting them hard at the Nigerian end. Are we hearing any of new strategies that you're using to secure that region where Lakurawa is thriving in? Are there any benchmarks to measure the position that the army has taken to combat these terrorists?
Well, I think what the Chief of Army Staff is saying maybe is from informed background, because in security, a lot of things are confidential. And don't forget his background. Itato, he was commandant of infantry school in Jaji, and in the military, infantry comes first because any ground onslaught world over is carried out by the infantry corps. Therefore, what he's saying, he might be on top of situation, but from our own independent analysis as stakeholders, because recently I was in some towns in Kebbi, like Ilela, which is border area to Niger. Don't forget, these Lakurawa insurgents and bandits were coming from Libya, where there were insurgency and failure of security, to Mali, to other parts of Niger. But because of the military regime there, they had no hiding place. They had to come and deceive some inhabitants of Sokoto and Kebbi. And where the area camped was a forest, Sauri Forest in Kebbi State. And right now, as I'm talking to you, the Lakurawa bandits are in wildlife forests of Kanji Lake National Park, which is in Niger State, and there is a town called Wawa. Wawa extends to Kayama in Kwara North, Kayama local government area. There are bushes of Gandu, Kemanji, then extends to Barute local government that has border with Benin Republic. So far, they've been dislodged by the combined effort of the Army, Air Force, and other security agencies from Sokoto and Kebbi, and they have now transited to these bushes of Niger, that is part of Kanji, Wawa, as well as Kayama in Kwara North and Barute local government, where you have towns like Okuta, Ilesha, Gure, then under Kayama local government, they are in bushes of Kemanji, Karunzin. So I think for the dislodging the military has done, they need to also put satellite, because when you go to Kanji now, you have air weapons school, 101 battalion, you also have 221 battalion, but in that Kayama that is in Kwara North, you only have skeletal military officers that are on field operation. They don't even have hospitable shelter, barracks, and what have you. And even the gun trucks are not there too. So I think the Chief of Army Staff, having succeeded in dislodging them from Sokoto and Kebbi, should also put intelligence satellite, even though it's a combined job. The police mobile force are involved, the DSS and others. So let them synergize to also extend their intelligence gathering to these places I mentioned.
Okay. I mean, it does look like they've spread from where we used to know the way Kebbi and Sokoto and to other places. But talking about this offensive between Nigeria and Niger, what's your reaction to it? Just the background. You know that with the coup in Niger, there was some sort of withdrawal from the multinational joint task force that was fighting Boko Haram along the borders. Thankfully, Nigeria was able to sign an MOU with the Nigerian interim government. Now we are hearing from the Chief of Army Staff that Niger will also be bombarding the terrorists from their own end while Nigeria is doing its own end. But what would this offensive really mean for Nigeria, given that the military is already stretched? We are fighting the likes of Boko Haram. We are fighting the likes of its offsprings, the ISWAP. So what really will this offensive mean? What will it do to get rid of Lakurawa? Will it help? I think that's my question.
The joint effort by multinational task force made up of Chad, Niger, Nigeria, and Cameroon has gathered momentum Itato. Because I can vividly recall the present day Isunupe, His Royal Highness Abubakar, was once their commander of multinational joint task force. And you know the gendarmes of Niger, Cameroon, and Chad are no nonsense. Don't forget, the late president of Chad, Idris Deby, lost his life in this direction, where he violated his comfort. He went beyond being executive president to remember that he was once a general and went to lead war against the Boko Haram insurgents in order not to come into the shores of his country. So I believe with this resumed dialogue and as well as a joint operation between the gendarmes of Niger, Chad, and Nigeria, it will gather momentum. Don't forget, Itato gendarmes of Niger, before the Colonel Chiani military coup that hosted the civilian administration, they used to even pursue the bandits up to Nigerian border of Jibia, Ilela, and other axes. But when the relationship became sour, when Tinubu initially under ECOWAS as ECOWAS chairman wanted to say, no, we don't want military regime, then they now withdrew. But later on, they now listened to former heads of state who led delegation, General Abdulsalah Abubakar, Sultan of Sokoto, and others. And even our Chief of Defense Staff went and met his counterpart in Niamey, where they deliberated. Then the National Security Advisor also met the Prime Minister and also other things.
But there are critics that say the multinational joint task force set up to fight Boko Haram has been ineffective, including the current president of Chad, who recently made comments and threatened to withdraw his troops. He says he's not getting enough support from other countries in mopping up these insurgents, especially when they attack. He says his country is doing the heavy lifting, and he doesn't know how long he can do it. So critics are saying even the multinational joint task force isn't as effective as it's supposed to be. So now that we are having this latest offensive, the question would be, how really effective will it be? Are there not cracks in, regional corporations in fighting insurgencies and banditry?
Well, I think the point I'll present here is by the recent success of the onslaught against fleeing ISWAP members by both the gendarmes of Chad, Niger, and Nigerian armed forces goes to tell you that everything about negativity and lack of cooperation has been put behind their what have you, because of recent, the fleeing ISWAP force, Boko Haram and what have you, were apprehended and some of them killed in battlefield. So that is to tell you they've now cooperated. And I told you reasons why it went so, because of the military coup in Niger. As for Chad, we've been having a very good relationship with Muhammad Idris Deby's Timor's administration in N'Djamena, where even the national security advisor, a retired AIG, Nuhu Ribadu, visited the president of Chad of recent. So I think this resumed peace cooperation will gather momentum. And for anyone to say it has not been gathering momentum, maybe that person has not been following, because when the cooperation was there, in fact, they dislodged a lot of Boko Haram insurgency, and that also reduced Boko Haram insurgency in northeastern states of Borno, as well as the border area of Gamborungala. Itato, when they carry out their killings, the Boko Haram insurgents, they normally flee into shores of Chad. But with that multinational task force cooperation, the gendarmes also carry out their onslaught, and it reduces it to barest minimum. So we cannot say that the initial cooperation did not gather momentum, because the reduction from 100% to 30% presently as I'm talking to you, because even yesterday, a friend of mine, is a security agent in our embassy in N'Djamena. He left Maiduguri via Gamborungala to N'Djamena. So we are there not to be security. And even up to now, a lot of people from Mafa, from Bama and other towns of Borno, they travel to
this
Chad.
Cross-border insurgency requires a lot of cross-border collaboration, sharing intelligence.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about military action, which is critical. Some experts also say in addressing insurgency, it sort of requires a blend of kinetic and non-kinetic measures.
Absolutely.
Building trust with local communities. What are your thoughts on that to make it a holistic approach when we're addressing insurgency?
Don't forget, at the advent of Boko Haram insurgency, able-bodied youths came under the guise and auspices of civilian joint task force. They collaborated with the 7th Division of the Army in Maiduguri Theater Command and the Joint Task Force, because they know the nook and crannies of the terrain and also of others. And it gathered momentum. The only area it is not gathering momentum is the northwestern states of Zamfara, Katsina, Sokoto, and Kebbi. That is what you call OI insecurity, ownership involvement, because most of these inhabitants are at the receiving point and end, knows the markets they go to, that is the bandits and the insurgents, and who are their members, collaborators, that supplies them food and also others. But in case of Katsina, as well as what have you, the non-kinetic measures that the government extended. Don't forget, of recent, there was Northwest Security Summit in Katsina, hosted by Katsina State Government in collaboration with United Nations Development Program after the Northwestern governors visited United States of America for security interaction and also of others. So I think people in Katsina, Zamfara, Sokoto, and Kebbi must do what is called OI, ownership involvement, because they are the inhabitants of these areas. Like the killing of the emir of Sabon Binni, Gobir area of Sokoto, it was the lacking OI, because it was realized intelligently through intelligence report that more than 50% of inhabitants of Sabon Binni, Goronyo, as well as other areas were involved in the armed banditry. They are either informants or people that supplies them food, women, and also others. So I think they must emulate the kind of sacrifice, civilian sacrifice, that the inhabitants of Borno Yobe did during the advent of insurgency by embracing the OI. Even though we have community policing that during the Buhari administration, 13-point-something billion was expanded, but at the part of the security agencies too, they need not to conceal information. Sometimes there are certain incentives you can give to these inhabitants, because once somebody is bringing you privileged intelligence information, is risking his life. At the end of the day, some of them go after them, kill them. We had cases like that in Niger.
You're talking about protection of informants.
Beyond protection of informants, there should also be attractive incentives.
Great.
Maybe as in little stipends to get them motivated, to boost their morale.
And that brings me to my next question. What do we really know about Lakurawa? How different is it from other armed groups that we have dealt with? Very quickly, if you can. What are we dealing with?
The issues about Lakurawas, they are entirely foreign bandits. These are people that went and participated in Libya uprising, came grouped in Mali. From Mali, they entered shores of Niger, but because of the activeness of the military junta in Niger, they had no place.
What is their ideology really?
Their ideology is...
or is it even an ideology at all?
Well, the way they pretended initially, they had like religious ideology, because most of them even speak foreign Fulani that even Nigeria indigenous and domesticated Fulani cannot honor. And don't forget, at the time they came and settled in some towns in Kebbi and Sokoto, they deceived them as regards being their protective military and what have you, not knowing they had agenda, where they later started putting levy on them and also teaching them how to bear arms and also other things, until they got to know that these people don't mean well for them.
A lot of questions arising from this situation, but we have to thank you, Salihu, for being here tonight. We do appreciate your insight.